Hey everybody, welcome back to Father Son DIY Garage. I'm Steve.
I'm Joe, and we're going to show you guys how we made a smoker and charcoal grill combo. Guys, in this video, we show you guys how we built this thing from the ground up.
And you'll see our first cook where we do breakfast, lunch, and dinner all on this barbecue.
Stay tuned. We started off this build by making our base. We chose 1.5" square tubing, 1/8 inch thick. Cut it all down to size on our Evolution chop saw. This is definitely my favorite way to cut down material in the shop like this, guys. Way better than grinding it or cutting it with the bandsaw. Once all of our base pieces were cut out, threw them on the table. Put a nice little bevel on all the edges, just to fill in with some weld later on. If you guys haven't been here before, this is Father Son DIY Garage. We do metalworking, woodworking, and just all around DIY projects around the house. So if you like us, give us a subscribe. Went into assembling our base. Just tacked everything together for the start. Using those welding magnets to make sure everything's nice and straight. Put a little cross piece in right here. We stick welded the entire project using 6013 electrodes. A lot of you guys in our past builds asked why we don't do MIG welding, and just because stick welding's more fun. Finished up putting full welds on all the base. Then I grabbed some 1/2 inch plate that was sitting out in the backyard for a while. Cut some 6x6 inch squares off of it. Grinded all the rust off. And we welded these to the bottom of every corner of the base. The purpose of these steel plates is so that when we weld our wheels on, they have a full flat surface to be welded to, rather than just part of the square tubing. This build's going to hold a lot of weight. We're guessing at least 700 pounds, so we're making sure this thing's nice and sturdy. Welded the side of the steel plate to the square tubing. I went ahead and did 2 passes on each side. Then we tacked our casters on. We decided to go with 4 swivel casters, that way you can move it from any point. A little more expensive, but I say it's worth it. Flipped it over and tried it out, made sure it worked nice. Put a partial weld on that inside. Then I decided to weld the whole caster bottom plate to the steel plate. You see I got my 2 passes right there. Once that was all done, I cut out some expanded steel to go on the bottom of the stand. Welded that all the way around. This is what's going to hold our firewood under the pipe, so when we're smoking, it'll be readily available. And here's the pipe in all its beauty. Nice and rusty, been sitting outside for a long time. This is a 20-inch diameter pipe, 3/8 inches thick, so nice and thick to hold in that heat. And I started working it by cutting off some of the scrap steel we didn't need, and then cutting it down to size. Put the pipe wrap around it. We cut this thing down to 4 feet. Got out the cutting torch. Then rolled it inside the garage to do some more work. I laid out a 20-inch diameter circle on some 1/2-inch plate here, and I cut it out with the cutting torch. And this is going to cap off one of our ends. So if you guys saw when I showed you the pipe, one of the ends is actually already capped off. So we're going to keep that. So we just got to cover one side up. I cleaned that thing up, brought it over to the pipe, and then started welding it on. Got a pretty good fit up on it. About 30 welding rods later though, this thing took a lot to fill in. I'm no pipeline welder, but I promise you guys this thing will not fall apart. Decided to put a piece of angle iron just across here to hold it together. And then I marked out the radius of the tank on those square tubing tops and cut them out. That way our pipe has a nice fit up to the stand. Alright, now it's time to put our pipe on top of the stand.
But before we do that, we want to give a shout out to Brunt Workwear. They sent us a couple pairs of these boots. They're durable, comfortable, last long. We've been working on them for about 3 months now. Holding up well.
Yeah, I've been wearing these on the job site doing commercial construction, and they're holding up real nice, really comfortable after walking a couple miles a day in them. So if you guys want to check it out, we'll leave our link to their shop in the description. This is their Marin soft toe that my dad's wearing here. They make some good looking boots, guys, so if you guys want to check it out, we're going to leave our link to their shop in the description, and you guys might be able to save a little money if you want to order some. Our next task was to get this pipe and stand lifted up. We ended up having to use the truck to pull this thing up just because it was super heavy. With that all done, I cleaned off the rust around the base and welded it to the pipe. Here I am laying out our door. And then cutting that bottom part out. I ended up grinding all the rust on the edges of where the trim's going to be. That way I can get some clean welds for that trim. Then I started working on our door hinges. Welded a piece of 1/2-inch pipe to the top. Got some 1/2-inch rod. Cut that down. I believe I cut these at 14 inches. Then I bent them to a 90-degree angle. And then I kind of smashed them down to match the radius of the pipe. And then put a full weld all the way around everything. Then I went into cutting out the trim, which is some 1-inch flat stock, an 1/8 inch thick. I kind of wish I would have gone a little bit lighter gauge on this, just because it was a pain in the ass to get in. Tack welded that thing all the way around. You guys will notice that I tack weld everything first, just to make sure I have a nice fit up, and then I go back and put a full weld on everything. Here I am putting a full weld around that trim. Then I went into working on the Firebox side of the pipe. You'll see here I'm cutting half of that capped end off. This is kind of the crusty end. Took a while to get this thing off because there was just so much rusty metal on it. Cut the rest of that crusty, rusted metal off. And then here I am building the Firebox. This is some 18-inch by 18-inch, quarter-inch steel plate. And what we're doing is pretty much making a cube out of it. Lost the footage to where I'm tack welding it together, guys, but here's how it ended up. Just like everything else, I went back and put a full weld around the whole thing. You guys will notice that there's a gap between the Firebox and the pipe. And that's just because we didn't account for the 20-inch diameter pipe. Usually we make the Firebox a little bit bigger than the pipe is. Then I got into cutting out the Firebox door. Same thing, welded a 1/2-inch piece of pipe. Got some 1/2-inch rod. Welded that to my door. Trimmed it out with some flat stock. Same thing, different spot. Cut it out, tack weld a piece on, cut the next part out, tack a piece on. Then I hole sawed out where our door handle is going to go. And I used a iron worker bolt that I got off a job site. I welded a piece of 1.5-inch pipe to be the handle for the Firebox. Then I got into doing the bottom of the Firebox. I put 2 steel plates in on the sides. Those are kind of in a V shape. Put some insulation in between those. What this is going to do is going to help hold in some of the heat on these long cooks, guys. We do like 12-hour cooks, cooking up some brisket and stuff, so heat retention is pretty critical for saving firewood and all that stuff. And then we have a false bottom going right on top of that. After that, I welded in a doorstop slash flow regulator. This is going to regulate the flow of air into the Firebox. And when everything looked good, I welded that nut to that ironworker bolt and made it permanent. Once I got done working the Firebox side of the pipe, I went to the smokestack. This is some 3/8 diamond plate steel I'm cutting out here with the cutting torch, and this is going to be our smoke chamber. You'll notice that my tank slowly runs out of oxygen. It's kind of cool, you can see throughout the cut that it just got worse and worse. So I went ahead and finished it off with the grinder. This steel had some old paint on it, so I went ahead and stripped that off with a wire wheel. You guys will see in this build we use a lot of reclaimed materials, rusty paint, all that stuff. Saves a lot of money, but it also adds a lot of time. Then I went into assembling everything using those welding magnets. Tacked everything together again. Once it was all tacked up, I went ahead and put a full weld on all the joints. And when that was all done, it was time to weld it to the pipe. Once I had that welded to the pipe, I went ahead and cut out my smokestack pipe cutout. It's going to be a 6-inch pipe. Here I am welding on that 6-inch pipe. I want to say we did about 4 feet on the smokestack. With the sides of the pipe all done, we went ahead and started working on the inside. This 1-inch angle iron I'm cutting out is going to hold up our grates inside the pipe. Gave it a few nice welds just because we're going to have some heavy meat on there. One thing I do wish we would have done is cleaned all that rust out of the inside before we started working on it, but you'll see at the end we blasted all the rust out. And this 3/4 inch angle iron I'm cutting out here is going to be for the grates on the inside. This is the little joining method I use to connect those ends. The frame for the grates is made out of angle iron, and then later on we weld some expanded steel over the top of them. Here I am cutting out that expanded steel. I just like to lay it right on top of it and then just cut it like that. That way I know I got a perfect fit up. I like to apply some pressure down as I go just so I make sure it's all sitting level at the same height. And then I go back and hit every single part of that expanded steel that touches the angle iron. Then I cut out some more angle iron, and that's going to be for our top grate, also known as our rib rack. Here's a demonstration of me doing that notch for the joint. Cut out just enough so it slides up perfectly to fit the other piece. This rib rack was 14 inches deep and 3 feet long. Same thing, put that over the frame I got and then cut it out. Took it back to the table and tack welded everything up. Then I put in my rib rack supports, which is just a piece of 1-inch angle iron. And it fit up nicely. I then went into building a handle for the door using some that 1/2-inch pipe. I just kind of eyeballed a 45-degree angle at both sides, and then was able to bend it up and put a magnet on it, make sure it's nice and square. Did the same thing on the other side. You'll notice before I welded this up, I put another piece of pipe in between the sides, and that's going to be so the door rolls up as you touch the handle. Welding it onto the tank. And there it is. Here I am drilling a hole for our thermometer port. Just a little 1/2-inch hole so that way we can stick our ports through there and they're not getting crushed by the door. And I covered that up with a piece of 1-inch pipe and then a threaded cap. Welded that thing on. And here I am screwing on a ball valve to our drain pipe. And then I welded that on. I drilled a hole before this right above where that drain's at. And here I am making the door stop on the back. Just out of some 1-inch square tubing. I opened the door to where it sits back a little bit, and then I went ahead and welded it where I thought it'd be comfortable. And with all that stuff done, we moved into making my favorite feature of this build, which is the charcoal grill. I framed that out of 1-inch square tubing. Beveling all the ends like usual. And for the pieces, I welded a little piece of cap onto them, just to cap them off so no water gets in them because they're going to be sticking straight up. Then I took the sanding wheel, cleaned all those up, made them nice and pretty. And I got into assembling. This is being built to fit right on top of the Firebox. So it's about 18 inches by 18 inches, just like the Firebox is. Sanding all those welds nice and flush, making it look pretty. Pretty much here I'm just welding up half of the squares framing. You'll see later on what I mean. I know this all looks like it goes together pretty fast, guys, but this build was actually probably about 80 hours. Fit that thing up on top of the Firebox. And here I am cutting some steel off of a piece of steel that I got off a job site. And this is going to be for heat shields. This is again from the iron workers on the job I was at. And I always wonder why I take this stuff home, but every once in a while I use it. You see I put a heat shield on both sides, and then I went into putting some angle iron up, and just like the inside of the pipe, this is going to hold up our grates. Just one piece on each side for that. And then I went into cutting out a piece of stainless steel. And what this is going to be is it's going to be a nice flat top grill for us to cook on and sear stuff up before we smoke it. Or just cook other stuff while we're smoking. And here's some stainless steel rod. And we're going to be making a nice little grilling spot out of that. These rods are about 17 inches to fit on top of that angle iron. I gave a nice round over on each side just so there's nothing sharp. So I had two long pieces on the bottom, and then I welded all of my other ones across it. And this was my first time stick welding stainless, and it turned out pretty good, guys. I just kind of used one rod as a spacer and just kept flipping it over, and ended up looking pretty nice. I was going to do it out of regular steel, guys, but with this thing being exposed in the outside, it'll definitely rust too much if it wasn't stainless. So, a little more money, but I say well worth it. Added one more rod in the middle there for some support. And I drilled a little hole on the stainless steel plate. And I found this metal hook in the garage, and I was like, it'd be cool if we could hang the plate or the grate off of the back when we're not using the other. So here it is, guys. Hang that thing up when we're not using it. Works for both of them pretty good. And that's the progress so far. Pretty rusty, but we end up cleaning her up pretty nice. So we decided to go ahead and clean the outside with these rust removing grinder wheels. And it seems to work pretty good. I mean, we're not looking for 100% here, guys. Some nasty looking welds there, but they end up getting cleaned up at the end. These wheels do a really good job of removing all that crusty rust, guys. This pipe's been sitting outside for who knows how long. I actually got this pipe off of Craigslist. I know a lot of people are curious where I get this stuff at. And yeah, that's where I get it. Craigslist, Opera, all that stuff. And this guy happened to own a demolition company and had a couple sticks of 20-inch pipe, and he sold it to me for a pretty good deal. But that always comes with more work because it is rusted. So you got to weigh your savings to work. OSHA has left the chat. Once the outside was all cleaned up, guys, we went ahead and went on the inside. I got this Harbor Freight sandblaster. Tried this one out for the first time. So that's bare metal right there, guys, on the stack. And then we started blasting the inside. We never really sandblasted this way before, so it was kind of a learning curve for us. Here I'm working on the shelf for the project, you guys. I welded 2 pieces of 1-inch pipe to the actual framing, and then I got some pipe that fit perfectly inside of that, and that's going to hold up our shelf. And here's where my dad came in with his woodworking expertise. Ripping down some wood for us. I believe he said it was inch and 3/4 by 1 3/4 inches. So 4 slats are going to be the shelf. And then these pieces of flat bar, I'm going to drill holes in those, and every hole is going to have a screw for each piece of wood. And that's what's going to hold it together. Screwing those in with some screws. And then it was time to weld it to the smoker. I welded that piece of flat bar on the bottom of that shelf to the piece of pipe we had sticking out. That way it's able to pop off real nice. Then I put a full weld on it, trying not to catch the wood on fire. Then I went back to that steel I got off a job and I cut some more out. And this is going to be our heat shield. The reason we put in a heat shield, guys, is so that way we don't superheat the food that's closest to the firebox, and it pushes the heat out and hopefully cooks everything more evenly and at the same time. Went ahead and sanded down that stainless steel plate just to make sure it was nice and good looking.
This is how we fire up the barbecue at my house.
Alright, you guys, now that the build's all done, it's seasoned up, it's time for our beer breakdown.
Hey, and if you've been watching our channel for some time now, you know we like to have an ice cold beer while we're walking through our latest build. So Joe, take us through it.
We're going to show you guys all the features of the build, and we're going to show you guys what we like about it, what we did different this time, and what we had problems with. So let's get to it.
Check out the mesquite table.
All right, we're going to start at the bottom, guys. So we put some 4-inch casters on this bad boy. Each one's going to hold 750 pounds. So, I mean, that's plenty to hold this build. I mean, this is a pretty heavy project, but plenty. 1.5 inch square tubing, 1/8 thick for the stand. We got our expanded steel on the bottom to hold all of our firewood. And then we got our 20-inch pipe. This thing is 3/8 thick. You see the thickness on that steel? That's going to hold in all the heat for us. Then we got our shelves. We got 2 shelves. We call these the main cooking grates. We got 2 grates here. And then we got our, what we call our rib rack, just because it's kind of close quarters to the top of the pipe. Just enough for a nice rack of ribs or 2. And then check out the firebox over here. All right, so we got the firebox, and it's got insulation on the bottom that's going to hold in the heat for all those long cooks. We like to cook brisket, you know, pork butt, all that, 12-hour cooks. It holds in the heat really well. This box is made out of 1/4 inch steel plate, 18 inch by 18 inch. We got our little latch right here with notches. So if we wanted to have a little fire regulator intake, we could switch it up a little bit. And this is the charcoal grill part. So we're gonna have our charcoals go right here during our cook. So if we want to cook something up like burgers midday while we're waiting for our brisket to be done, coals here. And then we got our stainless steel cooking grate. And then on the back here, we got our stainless steel flat top. That way we can sear up some meat. Say we're doing a tri-tip, we could sear it a little bit and then smoke it. We got our door stop. We got our smoke chamber that kind of just funnels in all the smoke into here and then up the stack. The 6-inch smokestack, Schedule 40 pipe. And then right here we have our temperature gauge. We like to use like the probe gauges, so it's got a hole in that inside of that pipe. We just stick those through, and then we can stick it inside of our meat. That way our door is not going to crush our monitors, and it's gonna last a long time. That's just a piece of 1-inch pipe with a threaded cap. Let's see what else. We got our handle that turns as you open. Then down here we've got our drain. This is kind of a ball valve, and I'm going to see how it holds up. I don't know how it's going to do with the heat, but that's going to hold all of our grease in, and then hopefully after the cook we can just go like that, let it all out, clean it up real nice, and then pack it up for the next one. Then we got our mesquite shelf, my dad's favorite. Back to the firebox for a minute. The charcoal grill part, we put these heat shields up just to keep in the heat when we have our charcoal going. I don't know, we're gonna see how it cooks, and then we may just add some holes, saw some holes in here. We'll see though, just for some intake. I don't know, we'll see how it cooks first.
All right, this build took about 80 hours for us to complete. We had a lot of new features in this, and Joe?
Yeah, so we did a lot of new things on this build that we haven't done in the past. Like the charcoal grill, that's completely new for us. The stainless steel, I've never done stainless steel welding. We got some stainless steel sticks to weld this stuff up, and it worked out pretty good. We're gonna see how it holds up and how it turns out. But yeah, all around a fun build, and
stay tuned for our very first cook on this new barbecue in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Got a 13-pound brisket here. All right, you guys, this is the night before. We're gonna trim this brisket up. We're gonna salt it up and get it ready for tomorrow morning.
First things first, take a little shot of whiskey. Not too much because you got a big knife that's very sharp. First meal of the day, the Mountain Man breakfast. You can see it getting cooked up right there. We've got sausage, bacon, onions, peppers, potatoes, cheese, eggs. What else?
That's it.
That's a lot. All right. There we go.
So
that's breakfast.
The first time testing out the charcoal grill feature so far. I know we're using the pot, but later on we're going to put the grate on and we're going to do some burgers and hot dogs and all that. So
burgers, hot dogs, that's lunch. Dinner, this brisket.
It's been going probably 3 hours now.
All right, stay tuned to see how it turns out. All right, now to sprinkle on a little cheese. Oops. Here we go. Woo! Look at all them layers of goodness. Nice. This side.
We're going to try out our stainless steel flat top with some burgers and we're going to see how it does. Jalapeno and cheese right here, and then 3 regulars. All right, we got a quick snack before the brisket on the flat top. Let's see how it did.
All right. That's a good burger. We need it on this side.
All right, now we're gonna try out some hot dogs on our stainless steel grate.
And there you have it. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner all cooked on this barbecue.
Thanks for tuning in to Father Son DIY Garage. We'll see you guys next time.
Cheers. Phone. Why don't we have microphones?